do we have a responsibility to put students into sets? We will define sets or streaming as grouping students into separate classrooms or groups based on academic ability. Students might follow separate curriculums or have a cap on their grades. An educational system should cater to everybody. Some argue that streaming allows students to work at a level of challenge more suited to them, where teachers can more easily support them, but this is a misconception. We will argue that streaming is unethical because it unfairly disadvantages certain pupils, has significant emotional effects on lower set students, and reduces their confidence and self-esteem to the point where students no longer believe they can succeed.
Our first point is that a system of setting should not disadvantage pupils because of protected characteristics like race or income. Yet this is precisely what streaming does. According to the Education Endowment Foundation, misallocation is a particular problem for students from disadvantaged backgrounds and from Ontario, Canada. Living in certain impoverished areas can correlate with losing a year of education. Misallocation can occur based on gender or ethnic stereotypes, according to Professor Becky Francis, Director of UCL Institute for Education, following on from a report that black pupils were 2.54 times more likely to be misallocated to a lower set in maths than white pupils, suggesting that students from minority ethnic backgrounds are more likely to be misallocated due to unconscious bias within the system. This, although not deliberate, misallocation of children prevents social mobility, feeding into the idea of a hierarchical system, and limiting social change as a result of streaming from a young age.
Our second point is that there are evident criticisms of our current banning, setting and streaming methods within the education system. According to the EEF, less experienced teachers tend to take on lower sets, meaning pupils are not being challenged, but rather are receiving a poorer quality of teaching and are being disadvantaged by sets. While it is moot to argue against the quality of any type of teaching, as all teachers must have the same qualifications to be able to teach, there are certainly points to be made about the differing challenge, expectations and pace that students may face in a lower set. However, to counter our argument, it doesn't seem to have that significant of an impact on low-attaining and high-attaining students. The EEF states that streaming places students less than 1 month ahead in their studies, having a small negative impact on low-attaining students and a small positive impact on high-attaining students, but overall, the effect is negligible. So if streaming is not affecting the educational outcome of students, then what's wrong with it?
Lastly, it is also important to consider the negative emotional effects of streaming. For example, in Malaysia, it's described as pervasive. According to a study by Dr. Thomas Ryan, a professor at Nipissing University, Canada, it leads to low self-esteem and confidence in lower set students. Sociologist Stephen Ball also conducted a study in 1981 at a comprehensive school which critiqued the placement of students in differing sets as opposed to mixed ability classes. He claimed this allowed students to thrive. Ball found that banding, streaming, and setting students into different groups on the basis of academic ability can negatively affect those put in the lower streams, as teachers have low expectations of them, and they will experience what Ball suggested to be a self-fulfilling prophecy, where students do not believe in themselves and their own abilities.
In conclusion, although putting students into sets can have a small positive effect on attainment according to the EEF, often the effects on attainment are negligible. However, what is absolute is the emotional effect of streaming on those placed in lower sets who can experience self-fulfilling prophecy, in which they don't believe that they can or they do have that potential to succeed. Evidence also shows that students from minority groups are often mislocated to lower sets, hindering social mobility and further reproducing the hierarchy and class divide. Therefore, we have an ethical responsibility to remove setting and streaming in the educational system in order to ensure fair opportunities within education for all students and all pupils in all environments.